everyone, and welcome back to the Procurement and Finance Coffee Break. I'm Claire Green, your finance transformation expert, and I'm with Richard Beaumont, procurement guru, coach.
I'm a guru again today.
Yes.
Right, okay,
And today we have a guest, Janine Pickard-Green. Richard, why don't you introduce our viewers to Janine and tell her a bit about her?
Well, look, Janine, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but obviously FinOps lead at Magic Orange, and I suspect we've got most of our audience will know what FinOps is, but I suspect quite a few haven't heard of Magic Orange. So perhaps you'd like to tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, and a bit about Magic Orange as well.
Thank you, Claire and Richard. I'm really thrilled to be here. So Magic Orange is a fully integrated IT financial management and FinOps solution. And we are a company that helps you understand your total cost of ownership. We're looking to drive your profitability and really unlock your value from the general ledger all the way through to your profit centers, giving you a lot more insights that you can use to actually make sure that both FinOps and your technology spend is used productively, so you can actually really get that return on investments. And we are a growing organization that is worldwide. We have premises in Australia, in the UK, and South Africa and America. And we are hoping to really help companies drive their profitability across the board.
Perfect. Well, look, lovely to see you.
Great. So Janine, let's dive right in. Lots of people have heard about IT professionals talking about moving to the cloud, migrating off of mainframes for a long time. But I think it'd be useful to give a recap for our viewers as, why are organizations increasingly moving from on-prem systems to cloud-based applications?
So there's several different reasons for the shift, and the three main ones we find is in the space of scalability. So with cloud platforms, you can really have that flexibility to scale up and down as you're using the different services. And that obviously allows organizations to adapt much more quickly to changing business needs, which they don't always have in that on-premise environment. The other thing is in terms of cost savings. So within the cloud space, it's very much a variable spend that you're dealing with. So companies can leverage the different cloud services. They can reduce the upfront cost for cloud services with discount plans and savings plans. And they only really pay for the resources that they're actually consuming, which is resulting in a potential cost savings that they've got across the board. And the last thing is accessibility. So cloud solutions, they provide a great accessibility and flexibility for different remote working environments. So there's a lot more collaboration in today's digital first environment. And in terms of accessibility, I'd also say having the ability to access services for AI and machine learning that they didn't have before, that a lot of the cloud providers also giving us. So that's really driving the cloud adoption worldwide at the moment.
Got it. Do you know what? It's kind of interesting. I mean, we chatted obviously in sort of the prep call, and one of the things that I've started to hear, and you mentioned it as well, is that despite all of those advantages, there seems to be just the beginning of a trend of some companies coming out of the cloud, and either moving back to fully on-premise or fully. I mean, cost might be one of those drivers, but what is it that you're seeing in terms of the reasons for that kind of reversal of what's been a very long-term trend, right?
Absolutely. So what we're finding is with the cloud repatriation back to on-prem, a lot of the time it ties into the migration and the actual original planning that people have done. Organizations are operating on a lift and shift model where they're going for like cloud services to what they currently have without looking at utilization and different elements to that. And the other thing is around governance. So a lot of the time companies don't have visibility into their cloud spend. They haven't got the correct tagging policies into place. So it's only when they have this massive uptick on their cloud bill that there's almost a sudden retraction and like, oh, things weren't as expensive with on-premise and we need to go back to that.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing.
So it's potentially companies not really understanding what their requirements and usage is before they do that sort of lift and shift to cloud that may be driving the uptick in costs. Now, I guess that's where a company like Magic Orange comes in. But how if you was helping a business to migrate to cloud, how would you go about understanding what their requirements are, because the way I understand it, how things may be configured for on-prem solutions, and I'm not an IT expert, but how things may be configured on-premise may be a way may not translate to requirements and how they're configured on the cloud. So how would you go about understanding what your cloud requirements are, which is kind of a different operating model?
Absolutely. So I think the first thing is that a lot of the cloud providers actually give lots of tools that can actually be used to track your infrastructure usage at the moment, your utilization on your existing products. And then what they will do is actually recommend the services that are similar in the cloud space, but looking at it from making sure that you're actually not purchasing anything that is exceeding your expectations and over provisioning. So we're finding that there's a lot more tools in the space for that. The other thing is really sort of understanding exactly what you're moving across. So what we would typically advise customers is really make sure, take a sample of your existing on-premise infrastructure, preferably the stuff that's actually non-production, and really look and see exactly, using those tools, how you can actually get the correct migration strategy, making sure that you've got the governance in place initially, and then running that as a trial product. So seeing exactly how you're actually getting those non-production environments running, and seeing actually what the benefits are from cloud, writing everything down, and then moving across and actually seeing, okay, how can we mimic this for our more production environments as well? And that seems to work really effectively, is actually really understanding your existing infrastructure and then moving forward. And there's a huge amount of tools and advisory services that can assist with that as well.
You know what? I have this picture in my mind now of a learner driver, right? And I'm not suggesting that CIOs are learner drivers, but just bear with me. So you're a learner driver, and you learn to drive a stick shift car in I don't know, a Ford Fiesta. And then you decide to lift and shift your driving into a Ferrari. In fact, a Formula One Ferrari. And at that point, you discover that you probably should have given it a bit more thought about making that transfer, and also how you were going to use, and whether it was even suitable for what you were trying to do. I mean, is that kind of image helpful? Because that's what it feels like to me.
Absolutely spot on. That's exactly the issue at the moment. And I think that, with things like the FinOps Foundation, which is a not-for-profit organization with a lot of frameworks coming into play, it's really helping those CEOs and CIOs really understand what the differences are between that on-premise experience or the cloud experience, especially if we're talking like a difference between, a Volvo and a Ferrari, because it is sometimes those cases. And unless you have that education, unless you know, okay, I'm going to be driving this premium Ferrari versus the Volvo, you need to have that knowledge to really get a successful cloud migration and actually continue to drive that value in that environment.
Well, do you know what? I'm going to push my analogy a bit further now. By the way, I like the difference of Volvo and Ferrari is actually going to be more helpful than Ford and Ferrari. So Volvo, tenuous link, sustainability and ESG. Come on, that you've got to give me points for that.
Absolutely.
I mean, all right. So we've got on-premise Volvo. We've got, cloud Ferrari. We've taught, Claire and I, we've interviewed a number of people, and this topic of ESG, sustainability, the impact of new legislation. But from your perspective, what are the sort of ESG and sustainability considerations that organizations should be taking into account when they're debating that Volvo Ferrari on-prem cloud discussion?
Absolutely. So we talk about 4 different areas. So in terms of energy consumption, what we find is on-premise data centers typically require large amounts of energy to power and cool servers. They're contributing to a lot higher carbon emissions. And cloud providers often leverage a lot of energy efficient infrastructure. We're seeing a lot of solar panel infrastructure that they're building in a lot of companies. And they're tending to use a lot more renewable energy sources to minimize that environmental impact. The second thing is on resource utilizations. Because cloud platforms allow for more efficient resource utilization through virtualization and multi-tenancy, they're actually reducing their overall carbon footprint compared to those on-premise deployments. Then we're finding in terms of emission reduction, when people are migrating to cloud, they can really reduce their reliance on those physical hardware. So it really reduces the amount of electronic waste you're seeing having to be disposed of, and like massive servers, and that obviously helps in terms of reducing pollution. And then just one thing that I'd like to add is the caveat to all of that is looking at it from a cloud perspective. If you've got wastage in your cloud space, that will still result in higher carbon emissions. And there's a lot more focus from different cloud providers to provide sustainability reporting and start to report on their own carbon emission usage that is actually driving conversations as well. So you have both sides of it, but there's definitely more advantages to move to cloud in the sustainability space.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really big thing, and I know that working with a couple of clients who are obviously trying to now get their scope 3 reporting sorted, and they're tech companies, and their cloud CO2 footprint is actually one of the biggest things in their supply chain, and they are having to work quite hard, because I think you're right, cloud providers, maybe the bigger players, but there are other cloud providers who aren't yet on top of their CO2 footprint, and therefore that's causing complications as well. So thank you for sharing. It's this is cost used to be our only topic, but that was 15 years ago, and it's just not the case now.
Absolutely.
And quite right, by the way.
So Janine, before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or advice for organisations considering a cloud migration before they start that journey? Because there are certainly some companies that haven't made that transition yet.
So my advice would be to approach cloud migration really strategically and collaboratively. So have the entire organization involved as much as possible, especially the main stakeholders. Assess their specific organizational needs, objectives, talk to finance, procurement, IT, and all the different departments to develop that comprehensive migration plan. Leverage the cloud provider information. There's a huge amount of frameworks that they offer to help with that migration journey, and continuously monitor and make sure that you're constantly optimizing and using FinOps tools to drive a cost efficiency and sustainability within your organization. So don't just think, oh, we've done the migration. It's a continuous journey, and it has to keep on evolving over time.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you, Janine, for sharing your expertise with us today, and thank you to our viewers for tuning in. I think really it comes down to that any transformation journey, whether it's an ERP implementation, a procurement specific implementation, or a migration to cloud, it's about really understanding the business requirements before you try and do a lift and shift approach. And for all these types of transformations, there's different tools and methodologies you can utilize to understand what those business requirements are, and then matching it to a future operating model. Really been insightful to have you here today, Janine. Thank you so much. That's all for us this week. Janine, Richard, any final thoughts?
Well, no, I would love to tell you what we're going to talk about next, but I haven't got a clue, and I just wait until Claire tells me what I'm
Well, no, I don't know either.
So the good news is that, look, Janine, thank you, and to anyone out there watching who would love to join us and just talk about what you care about, we're open to any discussion, because frankly, just about everything is going to find its connection back to procurement and finance in some way, and we are the masters of tenuous links, so we'll find a way. Yes. But look, for now, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Janine, again, thank you ever so much, and good luck going forward. And by the way, I am not at all jealous that one of your offices is in Kruger National Park. That to me just seems entirely unfair as I look out the window at raining England. Anyway, but look, for now, from all of us, thank you, and enjoy procurement and finance. Bye-bye.
Bye.